Hello everybody, welcome to my top 10 favorite films of 2019. Now, as you know, I've seen a lot of movies this year. I've seen about 100 and counting. I don't even know exactly how many, but I've seen several movies this year. Now you might be wondering, Tony, what is the obsession with movies? But if you know me, movies are the air that I breathe. Movies are my life. So this was a very difficult list to compile because I just had so many movies that I loved. There were so many good choices this year. And believe it or not, with all the movies that I saw, there were still some that I missed and didn't get a chance to review in time to make this list. Just to name a few, some of the films that I did miss and didn't get a chance to see just yet or review include The Irishman, The Two Popes, Just Mercy, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, A Hidden Life, and 1917. I'm pretty sure there's a lot I haven't seen still, but just bear with me. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this was a very hard list to put together. 2019 just offered so many wonderful films. It was just hard to pick 10 good ones. I had like 20 good ones. In fact, I had more than 20, but I had to narrow it down to 10, and that was very challenging. So before I break down my top 10 list, I wanted to shout out some honorable mentions. These are movies that I love just as much. It's just I had those other 10 that I'm about to list that just came first. And then these were ones that I still respected, still loved, found so much to enjoy from them, and I really hope that you check them out. So, without further ado, here is my honorable mentions of 2019. Hit it! Such great movies. There were so many, and a lot of the movies that were in those honorable mentions actually were on my top 10, and then I just found ones that were a little bit more, I don't know. It was just wild. So many picks, so many choices, so many great films. Now, before we get started with the top 10 list, there was one more honorable mention that I wanted to shout out and shine light on because it was a really good movie. It was on my top 10 list, and then of course, again, with a lot of movies that I'd been seeing in the past few weeks, that one kind of got bumped, but more to like, let's just call it the 11th spot. But it's still a great movie that I saw this year, and I really want to shine light because it didn't really get a lot of attention or praise that I felt it deserved, and that is The Art of Self-Defense. This movie's about a young, timid employee who works in an office, and he has like no social life, and one night when he's walking out running errands, he gets attacked by a motorcycle gang. And within the next few weeks, as he's recovering, he ends up enrolling into a local karate studio, and he wants to learn how to defend himself in case of any future attacks. Jesse Eisenberg just did a really terrific job, as he always does in my eyes. He's typical Jesse Eisenberg, very nonchalant, just very, very reserved. But there was just something about this movie that was so interesting. It's because I knew very little about it going in, and I came out of it very surprised and very entertained. So I really think you should check this one out. It's very independent, but a good one. All right, the time has come to list Tony's top 10 favorite films of 2019. I'm going to do what I usually do and what most people do when they break down a top 10. I'm going to start at the very top with number 10 and work my way down to my very favorite film of the year at number 1 and go from there. Number 10, Uncut Gems. Like I had mentioned in my review for Uncut Gems, this was just a wild ride from start to finish. My anxiety was out the roof. The adrenaline just from A to B was just all over the place. Adam Sandler was just giving us life with this performance. He's taken on some serious roles in his career before, but this is his darkest role yet. Probably the darkest material I've ever seen a comedian take. And honestly, I really loved it. I thought Adam Sandler did a terrific job. I really hope this award season he gets recognized because he just killed it. Even if you're not a fan of Adam Sandler with all the comedies that he's put out, his comedy may not be for everyone, but I certainly loved him growing up and I still adore him today. This was just a wonderful step in his career, and it's probably his best role to date. See this movie. Number 9, Knives Out. This was such a fun movie. And I was a little bit nervous because I thought this has everyone in Hollywood in it. It could be either really good or really bad. And I'm safe to say it is very good. I was entertained the entire way. It's just a fun movie. And that's the word I kept describing it to people when they kept asking me. I was like, it's just a fun time. The mystery is really fun. The thrills are there, but it's obviously more of a comedy. But even in the times that it's supposed to be thrilling, I was literally nail biting. I was like, oh God, what's going to happen? Everyone in this movie just brings their A game. Every player just knows what they're doing, and Rian Johnson just had the best band of characters, and he really put on a show. This was such a fun movie. Please check it out when you can. Number 8. The Last Black Man in San Francisco. Now, I saw this movie a few weeks ago and I didn't review it on its own, but this was a film that just caught my eyes and just came into my life a little bit later, and I was just mesmerized. I thought the performances in this movie were so extraordinary because it didn't really feel like acting. It just felt like organic conversation the entire way through. It really helped that it was a lot of unknowns that were in this movie. It just made it more that interesting to get invested into these characters. There are going to be a couple faces that you recognize and some respected work and some respected actors that are in it. But for the most part, the unknown actors just really brought something special to this project. It's a beautiful look at San Francisco and how it's always, San Francisco's ever changing. And just that relatable subject that we think we can all understand and resonate with is, where do we belong? It's kind of an identity crisis almost, as if to finding our footing. And I just really loved the movie for being very honest. Number 7, Honey Boy. For those of you that don't know, this is Shia LaBeouf's love letter to himself and his father. This is a very cathartic movie for him. This is a true story and the true events that happened in his upbringing with him and his dad. And it's very personal, it's very vulnerable, it's very emotional, and it's very beautiful all in one. I think Shia LaBeouf just really delivered not just a beautiful insight to his life, and he allowed us to see what he went through and just the stuff that he was going through, and at times things that he still suffers from. But I do think this was just a wonderful full circle moment for him, and I really just applaud him for sharing his story with us and allowing us to see inside what was really going on. This is a movie that won't really be for the audience. It will be more for Shia and his dad. But if you are somebody who can really empathize and sympathize with people who have just dealt with trauma, then I think you're going to really applaud this amazing film. Number 6, Ford v Ferrari. I have to say, aside from Fast and the Furious, I'm not really much of a car person, but the movies about cars really interest me. I'm obsessed with choreography of cars, so how basically when races are going on and how the motion of them and how just the sequences are put together, I'm just fascinated. And Ford v Ferrari really took me by surprise. This is a true story, and I had never heard of the story until now. Matt Damon and Christian Bale just deliver some great work in this movie. James Mangold really directs such a powerful and fun, entertaining story for 2.5 hours that you might think would run long, but this movie didn't feel like that at all. It was really fast, editing was great, sound mixing was great. This is just a really good movie. Please check this one out. Number 5, Loose. This was a movie that was another one that didn't really get on a lot of people's radars, and I really wish it had a bigger release because this was a very thrilling movie. Octavia Spencer, Naomi Watts, Tim Roth, Kelvin Harris Jr., they give such wonderful performances in a movie that's just very present and just very timely. And this was a story that really took me in a different direction. I'm sitting in the theater watching it and I'm thinking one thing, and then all of a sudden this movie just unfolds into something else, and I was just enthralled. I really loved this movie. It was one of those that I couldn't stop talking about to people who I know weren't going to be able to see it because it was a limited release, but I kept saying, once you can find it, find Loose. It's one of those movies where I don't really want to explain too much about it. I'd rather you just go into it with an open mind, know very little, and you'll be surprised. Number 4, Jordan Peele's Us. So, as you're aware, Jordan Peele's Get Out was his directorial debut, and it was a big hit with audiences. I just think Us is an amazing follow-up. I thought Us, in my opinion, was even better. I saw it 3 times. I just loved where this wild scenario ended up. I love the story of this. I love that this is a movie that you can interpret many different ways. It's a real conversation starter. I remember after I first saw it, me and my friends were just like, Okay, so what did you think about this? What did you like? So did you like? And we just couldn't stop going back and forth with ideas and trying to like figure out what it really meant. And then when I saw it a second and third time, I just love that I was starting to put more clues together and just form different opinions. And I think Jordan Peele did that, intentionally. He didn't really do it to have one answer. It's allowed to be open for all answers. And it being a horror movie, I was just genuinely frightened. It was good. Number 3, Waves. Trey Edward Schultz. He's a director that is still new in my eyes. His first movie came out in 2015, and this is already his third movie. And in those 3 movies, I think he's just delivered such groundbreaking work, an emotionally captivating story in all 3 of them. But this one is the most personal and the one by far the best that I've seen him do. I think what's wonderful about this is that it's not only poetic, it's visually stunning. The colors of this movie are gorgeous. The music is just a guide through this movie, and it is really helping tell the story. Very much like The Last Black Man in San Francisco, it felt more like organic conversation happening between people as opposed to acting, and that's something I really appreciate with what directors can do. Not to mention this movie and what Trey Edward Schultz's trademark is now known for is that he loves long takes, and I love that this movie gives you just a long take after long take in certain sequences that really just make the movie feel even more involved. You feel like you are involved with their lives, and I love that about this movie. All the more reason why it feels so organic. Check this movie out. Number 2, Britney Runs a Marathon. So this was one of the most anticipated films of the year for me, and that's because this was a story that just by reading the synopsis was going to be one that was going to be very personal to me because I can relate to this character on every level. Dealing with weight issues, having just always been made fun of, having to find a way to poke fun at yourself before anyone else can do that was something that I could resonate with. It was insane. I wish a movie like this had been made at the time that I was growing up because I didn't have a film to turn to that I felt like I could relate to. So Paul Downs-Calazo, who wrote and directed this movie, it's his first movie, I just applaud him for giving us such a wonderfully entertaining story and just told wonderfully by Gillian Bell. This was a delicious film for anybody who's ever felt so alone, and also understanding that you can be accepted and that you're not alone. And I really appreciated the message of this movie and that it was inspired by a true story. And I really loved it. It was great. It's on Amazon Prime. Check this movie out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. All right, everybody, we've arrived. It is time to reveal my favorite film of 2019. Are you ready? Are you ready? Parasite. You guys, this film just struck me like no other. This movie started one way and then it turned into a completely different direction. The first half of the movie, I'm just like having a great time, not knowing exactly where it's going. And then the last half of the movie, it just goes completely south and in a way that I was not expecting. I was so surprised, and the tension that just like was running through my body throughout this entire movie was something otherworldly. I think this movie was just shot so beautifully. It is so well crafted. The cinematography, the production design, the look of the city that it's set in, everything about this movie was just perfect. This is a near perfect film. I really didn't have a single flaw about this movie. The entire movie, I just kept sitting with my friend and I was like, oh my God, oh my God. Like, it was just that damn good. The acting in this film is incredible because these actors are not really known here in America, but what they brought to the screen and what they gave us was just incredible. And it was just so mind-blowingly amazing. I just loved everything about this movie, and I really hope that this movie gets all the praise, all the love, because it really blew me away. I loved Parasite so much. Please see Parasite. I kid you not, you are going to be like jaw dropped on the floor after you've seen it. It's that good. All right, well, that is my top 10 list of 2019. I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope you check all these movies out if you haven't already. And of course, if you'd like to hear more movies and reviews and see what else I have to say, look forward to 2020 because there's plenty more films and reviews where that came from. Thank you guys for tuning in. Give this video a like, a comment if you enjoyed. Share it with a friend. Let them know about it so we can keep the conversation going. And I'll see you soon.